And welcome back to the Wild Digest. I'm Scott. Hey, remember me? I used to do this thing, and then I kind of vanished. But I've tried to make I've tried to make sure that I at least posted a few things to keep you all in the loop as to what was going on in my life, including talking about starting a job a couple of weeks ago at my favorite local used bookshop. And I'm going to go into that first and foremost because I'm actually no longer working there. And you'll be like, wait, what? It's only been a couple weeks. This is true. So here's the thing. So I've been trying to find a full-time gig for a while now. Well over a year and a half ago, I lost my full-time lead copyright position for a pretty big billion-dollar company. In fact, 1,000 of us were laid off in a single day. I don't know if I've ever really talked about that. It's kind of a little sticking point. But so since then, I've been trying to land a full-time gig, and I've been applying to countless jobs with very, very little success. But I do have side projects, writing projects, and I do the newsletter for one of my publishers. So I've been keeping busy. Let's put it that way. Anyway, a few weeks ago, I was contacted by a friend of mine who works for the Iliad, and she mentioned that there was interest in potentially hiring somebody to work at the store. Now, I've always expressed interest in working there, having worked at bookshops in my past. In fact, when I was living up in Portland for a few years, I worked for Powell's Books, and some of you may know of Powell's. It's the legendary city of books. I worked at the downtown location, the big one, for just bits and pieces, sometimes for fill-in. I certainly trained there. But then I was more stationed at the Cedar Hills location, which is a suburb of Portland. And that, to date, remains one of my favorite jobs of all time. I loved that store. It was just a really, really fun experience, but despite it feeling a little bit corporate, it still had that sort of independent quality, and remains so to this day. So while I was at Powell's, I worked as a generalist. So I had, cashier slots, and I had customer service desks slots, and I had sections that I would take care of, and book labeling and book new arrival check-in and all that kind of stuff. So they constantly were moving me around. After about a year, I was brought on to work as a used book buyer, which was my favorite part of that job. I loved being a used book buyer. And so it was a really nice little mix of fun things to do in a very comfortable environment. A really nice break room, supervisors who would hound you and make sure that you had taken your 10-minute breaks, and you had a nice lunch break and all this kind of stuff. So, and we even had benefits. It was actually a really interesting thing because that job was unionized. So it was very cushy for a retail job, and I loved it. So jump ahead to this opportunity to work at Iliad. And I interviewed a couple of weeks ago and talked to the owner, and he asked me what my background was. And of course I mentioned working for Powell's, and I mentioned also that when I was in college, I worked for an independent bookshop as well, both of which carried used books and new books. And he said, well, can you tell me a little bit more about what you did at Powell's? And so I told him, generalist, customer service, cashier, used book buyer, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, oh, that's great. That's exactly what we need. So in my head, I thought, well, great. I'm going to be, doing generalist type stuff, helping customers, stocking books, organizing sections, running the cash register, maybe doing book check-ins on some new arrivals, all that kind of stuff. I certainly had the experience for that. Well, day one, I had zero training. I literally walked in and they were like, this is what you need to do. And within a single day, I knew that my role there was going to be little more than a stock boy, quote unquote. And it was going to be effectively almost an 8-hour day, on hard surfaces, mostly on my feet, shelving books, organizing sections, and occasionally helping customers. And that was going to be it. There was going to be no cashier shifts. And amazingly, the store has no break room, has no place where you can put your feet up for a few minutes and relax. It didn't have any kind of a kitchen. There was a tiny little room when you would walk in where there were lockers and you could store your personal items that had a microwave of, I never even looked into it, and a small fridge, and that was about it. There wasn't even a place to actually sit and eat a meal. If you wanted to eat, you had to go out to your car, because even behind the store, there's no place to sit down. There are no benches, there are no tables or anything like that. So there were a few things that were negatives as far as I was concerned, and I didn't much care for. And I have to tell you, I'm in my 50s, and at the end of each day, I felt like I had been kicked down an elevator shaft. I was in agony. Now, if that was one of the first jobs I had after moving to Los Angeles back in the day, in my 20s, I would have probably loved it. The pay rate is good for that kind of work. They do offer some kind of a benefit package. And there's some other neat little things, like you get a nice discount on books and such. And the staff were all great too. I got along with everybody who I was working with. But I did get an opportunity that just sort of popped up in the middle of the week last week to take on some extra work fully remotely for a good rate. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to step away from the Iliad and take on this other role, because I just don't know if I was necessarily a good fit. But as I said, when I preface this story, the Iliad remains my favorite used bookshop, and I will continue to support it. They actually have a rare book room about to open up, and I cannot wait until that is set up and organized. I've been watching its progress over many weeks, and got to sort of wander around in it in its transitional form last week. So that's the end of that story. Shockingly, despite my having a nice discount as an employee, I never bought a single book. Can you believe this? But I did get some freebies. So I'm going to show off a few things in this video. Some stuff that I've picked up since the last video. Some stuff I bought. Some stuff I got for free from the Iliad, and this was free to the general public. I just happened to see it in a box outside and grabbed it. And also do a quick reading update, and then I have an unboxing to do. This is actually from Jake with Pulp Mortem. He sent this to me a couple of weeks ago, and I have not opened it because I wanted it to be a surprise for both me and you. So we'll get to that shortly. So let me really, really quickly kind of move through some of my recent acquisitions. I don't know if I would necessarily call this a haul, just because it's just sort of, it's all over the place. There's some stuff I picked up in stores. There's stuff I got, like I said, for free. There is an eBay purchase here that's a little insane, and then of course Jake's box. So first of all, let me show you what I got out of the freebies. Now, because of this rare book project that's going on at Iliad, the owner Dan has been unboxing a lot of cartons to pull out the more collectible items, and in the process he's finding a lot of stuff that was used in there, sometimes for packing. And some of that stuff is really, really good. And at the moment, if you go to the Iliad, outside in the back of the store, there are 25 boxes full of free books. Now, a lot of that stuff is going to be, I'm trying to think of some of it's like Rush Limbaugh garbage, and it's like political stuff from the 2000s, early 2000s, and nonsense like that. Some weird cookbooks that are kind of here and there, and but you do find a few items mixed in of interest. And when I saw these, I immediately jumped. So we're going to take a trip back in time through these freebies, and they're pretty cool. So this is the magazine of fantasy and science fiction. I know a lot of you are familiar with it, This is the September 1976 issue, and I want you to take a look at the condition on this, because it looks like somebody's probably subscribed to this back in the day, got the magazine, and likely never read it. It went on a shelf or sat in a rack or something, and then they never did anything with it. So it's now mine, and there's some great stuff in here. You can see Barry Malzberg, Kurt Siodmak, Algis Budrys. I always feel like I'm mispronouncing Kurt's name. And of course, articles from Asimov and such in there, and a fun cover. But one thing that I thought was pretty great was and this is 76. There's a vintage Dungeons and Dragons ad in there. You enter a world of swords and sorcery. So fun stuff. So again, look at the condition. These are crazy. This is August of 76. And again, it's pristine. It's pristine. These were free. I'll just show you the covers. July 76. Great stuff. I think is it better if I hold it back here? I'm not sure. This is June of 75, so we jump back a year. Wait, is it this one? No. Still a magazine of science fiction, fantasy and science fiction. And again, a beautiful cover on that one. You got Robert Silverberg on there, Ron Goulart. This is January of 75. Interesting thing about this one is it's a glossy cover, and the other ones are matte. This has Elsprague de Camp, Kilgore Trout. Haha, you know who that is. That's obviously a Christmas issue. Is it? Yeah, January. Well, kind of. I don't know. That's weird. Okay, this is October 68. And this has Asimov, Goulart, Larry Niven, Arthur C. Clarke, Robert Silverberg, and Harlan Ellison. Are you noticing the condition of these things? It's crazy. They look brand new. Now we start to get into some that they're a little more tattered, but you'll see why. This is 1955. Astounding science fiction with The Gift of Gab by Jack Vance. That's kind of a chaotic cover, but it's in really, really nice shape as well. This one very likely was probably red, but it's also lesser quality paper overall, so more prone to get injured or damaged. This is Astounding Science Fiction, August 1949, and yeah, this one is starting to get. This one's a little more ragged, but a really, really cool cover. Elsprague de Camp featured there, August 1949. And then lastly, July of 1949, and this one's in much better condition, although there are a couple of little broken pieces there on the cover, but Brookhaven Atomic Pile. But anyway, those were all free. Anybody could have grabbed them. I just happened to be there when the boxes got put out, and I couldn't skip it. I couldn't say no to those. Reading wise, I'll just show you real quick. I did read this book, Sea Siege, and you'll remember this is one of the ones I got at the collector's show, paperback collector's show. And I don't know if I love this. I don't know if I really even liked it. It's a nuclear war story on an island, and inexplicably there are monstrous sea serpents and intelligent octopuses or octopi. Anyway, it was a bit of a slog to get through, even though it's a fairly slim volume. I don't think I would recommend that one. It's going to be more like a 2 out of 5 if I were to rank it. Now I'll find out, people will be like, "What are you talking about? It's a classic." I don't think it is. Anyway, some other acquisitions. Now these ones I did pay for. One of the ones I'm reading right now, and I think all of these are actually from the Iliad. So, but I got these before I started working there. This is Dolphin Island by Arthur C. Clarke, and you can see the bookmark is in there because I just started reading it. It's kind of a juvenile. I'm pretty sure it's a juvenile. The main character is 16 years old. and it's written in a sort of sleeker, faster pace style, which feels like it was written probably more for a juvenile audience. I'm sure it is a juvenile. A few other oddities, not really oddities, but some fun acquisitions. I did get a copy of Amazon's, and I know when they did the Ebes episode, there wasn't a lot of love for what was in between these covers, but you know what? I wanted to grab it anyway. There is a chunk out of the cover there, you can see, but the rest of the book is really, really solid. There's no spine creasing or anything like that, so got that. This one is kind of fun. This is now the second book I have in my collection with Boris Karloff on the cover. I've shown, I think, yeah, it was well, maybe I've never shown it in this video, but last year at the Vintage Paperback Collector Show, I picked up the novelization of The Haunted Strangler. And I think I read it actually last year at Halloween. Maybe that's when I talked about it. But that has Karloff on the cover. This is Tales of the Frightened. It's not in great shape, but you can see Boris on the cover there. And it is a collection of very, very, very short stories. I don't want to pull this open because it is a little fragile. But you can see they're all like about 4 pages long. What's interesting about this, wow, I think it's I don't know if it's going to last much longer, to be honest. What's interesting about this book is it was actually paired up with a vinyl record of Boris reading the stories. So, or record set, I don't know, there must have been, maybe there were 2 records in there. But it actually says on there, recorded by Boris Karloff. It has the Belmont logo on there, which is, I think, was a record publisher. It says a Belmont book. But yeah, Tales of the Frightened, recorded by Boris Karloff for Mercury Records. And you can find the copies of the record on eBay. There's quite a few people selling the original record. Might get it at some point, but I have found some of the readings on YouTube, so I can at least check them out there. But it was, how could I pass up a copy of a book with Boris Karloff on the cover? And this was also at Iliad, and I have one of the other books in this series. I don't know how many there were, but this is Flight to Opar, and it's sort of a Tarzan pastiche that Philip Jose Farmer did. You can see it's in Tarzan's Africa 12,000 years ago. It's a little blown out there because of the lighting, apologies. But really, really nice condition. This is number 197, so not too far into the Yellow Spine Daw series. But this was another one I got at Iliad. And then I had watched Jake's video where he discussed the book Rom by Carl Sherrill. And I was absolutely amused by it and felt compelled to try to track down a copy and read it for myself. Iliad had a copy, but it was in really, really bad condition. And so I skipped it. But he had mentioned that there was a sequel. In fact, I believe there were 3 books. The second book was released in English, and I think he said the third book was maybe only released in Spanish, but not 100% sure on that one. I'm sure, Jake, you can chime in and clarify this whole thing. But they did have a copy of Skraelings, which was the second book, which is Rom in early America. Published by New Infinities, which was a company that Gary Gygax of Dungeons & Dragons fame co-created, notorious for the role-playing game, the unplayable role-playing game Cyborg Commando. Diving deep there. But they also printed some fiction, and the main reason was that Gary had started a series of books called focusing on a character named Gord the Rogue. I think it's Gord the Rogue, yes. And he wrote a few of those for TSR, and then when he left, New Infinities picked up fiction publication tradition, I guess. They started publishing fiction, and it was mainly so Gary could publish additional Gord the Rogue books. And I think he did maybe 4 or 5 more through New Infinities. But this also popped up. So Skraelings by Carl Sherrill. Who knows? But there were 2 copies, both of which were in really, really nice condition, and I sent one to Jake. So this box that I'm going to open up is kind of a response to that. But amusingly, Carl Sherrill's shelf space in the store was also occupied by something else, the Space Prodigal. And this is a bit of a chonker. It's not in great shape, but it is solid, so it is completely readable. But it seems to be a bit of a sexy space story, because every time I've opened it up and just randomly read something, it looks like sex is about to happen. So I mean, I may have to, I'm gonna have to read this at some point. But yeah, the Space Prodigal Son, right? Okay, so those were acquisitions from the Iliad. Before I get to my last stack over here, I want to open this sucker up. So this, as I said, this came from Jake with Pulp Mortem, and you'll have to excuse me because I just stabbed myself horrifically with an X-Acto knife. Okay, not horrifically. Okay, so this box came from Jake from Pulp Mortem, and I've been saving it because I thought it would be a lot of fun to open it in front of you on a video. So I have no idea what is in here, and I feel a little guilty because I only sent Jake 2 books, and this feels like it has far more than that in here. So whatever is in here is going to be, oh yeah, there's a lot in here. Jake, you didn't have to do this. My God. Okay, what do we got? Holy crap, this is some good stuff. Okay, there are a grand total of 7 books in here. Seven friggin' books. First and foremost, oh, we got a recycled books bookmark. Very cool. All right, we've got an ace double. It's a Jack Vance ace double. I do love me some Jack Vance. Son of the Tree. Jake, thank you so much. And the Houses of Isms. I've got an Algis Budrus, The Unexpected Dimension, which appears to be short stories. I'm guessing. Yeah. Collection of short stories. This is this Berkeley? I'm guessing it's a Berkeley. Anyway, there we are, The Unexpected Dimension. Oh, hey, I can never say no to some Burroughs. This is such a good cover, too. This is The Rider by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Look at that cover. That is so rad. I've actually never read this, so I will be diving into this. It's a nice little Slim Burroughs. Who, I mean, you would be shocked. I don't have a copy of Rourke by Avram Davidson. I certainly don't have a copy with this cover. I've seen that crazy green cover that has gone around with the character with the long stretched out neck. Robert Moore Williams. And is this a novel? It looks like it might be a novel. Vigilante, 21st Century, Robert Moore Williams. Super scientific weapons gave organized criminals an advantage the law couldn't match until one brave man fought back. Really, really nice condition of that. That looks amazing. That's a cool cover too. Look at that. That's cool art. Dude, you're so generous. You rock. We've got a Bertram Chandler. I've talked all about the A. Bertram Chandler Grimes novels, and this has to be a John. Yeah, it is a John Grimes novel. This is The Way Back, and it is a DAW, number 273. There we go. And last but not least, and in bag no less, Lester Del Rey's Attack from Atlantis. I have been wanting to get a copy of this book. So Jake, you just fulfilled a wish. This is amazing. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate your generosity, and I hope you all enjoyed this fun little unboxing. Send stuff to Jake; he'll send you cool stuff. All right, that's the unboxing. Last but not least, I do have some DAWs I wanted to go through, and this one's a little bit crazy. This was an eBay purchase. As you know, I've been collecting DAWs for a while, building up my collection. I have a pretty sizable wall of yellow over here, and but I am very picky about the condition for the most part. And I've been trying to get the Alan Burt Akers Dre Prescott books, because I really want to dive into those at some point. And I know they're pastiches, like Barsoom pastiches, planetary romance type things. Probably have a lot of similarities to like the Gore books. I don't know if they go as far into the BDSM as the Gore books do, but I still think it's cool, and the covers are always great, and I've just been wanting to build that collection up for a while. So I found a seller on eBay who was selling a lot of them. I got them for cheap, and so I think it's 17 total. Number might be wrong, but anyway, I have. I'm just going to go through these really fast. This is number 1. I have other printings of number 1, so this was a different printing of it. I got a number 4, Sword Ships of Scorpio, number 5, Prince of Scorpio. And notice if I'm skipping numbers, I probably already have those. It's just this was the lot that I got from this particular seller. Another copy of number 5, but with a slightly different cover, a radically different cover. Then a big jump. We jump to 16, Savage Scorpio. 17, Captive Scorpio. 18, Golden Scorpio. And 19, A Life for Cregan. And this is kind of funny because the author, of course, is Alan Burt Akers, which may even be a pseudonym. I can't remember if it was a pseudonym for somebody else. But you'll notice when you get higher up in these numbers, now suddenly Dre Prescott is actually writing the books. Even on the spine, it just says Prescott. It was the fictional character. Number 20, A Sword for Cregan. And you can see the four-armed guy. It's just like in Barsoom on there. 21, A Fortune for Cregan. 22, A Victory for Cregan. 23, Beasts of Antares. 24, Rebel of Antares. And you can see that they're all different sub-series. So there's the Scorpios and the Creegans and the Antares books. 25, speaking of, Legions of Antares. I mean, these covers are great, and they do just like other DAWs, they have some occasional interior art as well. Just looking here. Yeah, some cool stuff. You can see that. This is 26, Allies of Antares. I have no idea how many legs that horse has. Is that 2 horses? That's got a lot of legs. 27, The Mazes of Scorpio. 29, Fires of Scorpio. And you'll see these are all yellow spines. Except for, now it jumps to 32, and the yellow spines are no more. I have Seg the Bowman, Dre Prescott 32, and you can see now we're past the yellow spines. So just a quick run through of a whole bunch of Dre Prescott novels that I picked up in a lot, and someday I'm going to get to reading all these stupid things. So, but that's not today. So that is it. So freebies, an awesome box from Jake from Pulp Mortem. Thank you so much, dude. That's some great stuff. I cannot wait to dive into Attack from Atlantis, especially. Some Iliad acquisitions and a little bit of story about my time working for the Iliad, which came to an abrupt end solely by my choice. So that is it. I'm back, kids. This is my first video in a while. Very excited to get back in front of the camera and in front of the mic, and I look forward to doing some more of these in the coming weeks, sooner than later. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about that I've been just sitting on because I've been so busy. I'm still really busy. I'm busy with other projects now. There may be even some other cool stuff coming up that I'm going to be jumping into. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this quick little whip around. And I will see you all very, very soon. And thanks once again for sticking with me. I know I haven't been a very consistent poster, but I do try to at least give you some content that I hope you find entertaining and interesting. So I will see you in the next video, hopefully very, very soon.